Welcome to this live edition of the Profit by Design podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Sabrina Starling, the business psychologist and the author of the 4-Week Vacation, as well as the How to Hire the Best series. Today, I am joined by a special guest, Angie Noll of Reconciled Solutions, and she is here to talk with us about why we need key performance indicators in our business, what we can do with them, and how our key performance indicators make it easy to run our business, because Angie is all about making business easy. And as we dive in today, I want to just share Angie is also a part of our Better Business, Better Life program here at Tap the Potential. And this episode came about. We are actually having Angie on the podcast twice because she's got that much valuable information to share with business owners. This episode came about because Angie has been doing a deep dive into looking at the key performance indicators that are important in the different industries that we need to have, that we are all in our businesses. And I think that's a unique perspective, is just knowing based on your industry what the key performance indicators are that are important. But today we're really going to talk about the key performance indicators that in general every business owner needs to be aware of, and how do we get to them. So I want to tell you a little bit about Angie as we're diving in. She's the founder of Reconciled Solutions, where they offer accounting and advisory support to professional service businesses. Angie's a profit first professional, bless you, Fix This Next certified speaker, I'm sorry, let me back up. Angie is a profit first professional, Fix This Next certified advisor, certified pumpkin planner, a QuickBooks Online Pro advisor, and a keynote speaker who brings energy to the room with a relatable and friendly tone. She thrives on helping business owners focus on profit acceleration, efficiency, and sustainability. Boy, Angie, we have so much in common there. I'm with you on that. As a wife and mother of 3 teenagers, Angie is a steadfast believer in business sustainability, not only through ensuring long-term profitability, but also through lifestyle sustainability. Angie knows how very arduous and difficult the journey can be towards running a profitable small business and avoiding entrepreneurial burnout. For Angie, sustainability means managing a flourishing business in coordination with being keeper of the calendar at home with 3 kids, 2 pets, and 1 sweet husband. So, Angie, welcome to the Profit by Design podcast.
Thank you, Dr. Sabrina. I'm so excited to be here. I've been listening to this podcast for probably 5-6 years already. And now I'm a part of the Better Business, Better Life community too. So I have taken it to heart.
Yes, you absolutely have. So I want to start there, because you have made some incredible strides with us this past year on taking your life back, because your business had really grown. And when you started with us, I mean, man, your calendar was packed. And what stood out to me is, where was the room for Angie in all of this? So maybe if you share just a little bit about what you've done differently this last year and some lessons you learned around that, and we can tie that into our KPI conversation too.
Yeah. So I think I am leading from a place of heart, but I'm also backing it up with measurement. And what does that mean when I'm talking about my calendar? Well, it means that everything has a place in my calendar, and it's all like color coded and tied out, and making sure that I'm hitting my big rocks every single week, and that those big rocks are going to ultimately lead to my 1 year and my 3-year goal. And just really thinking through that, because, business is busy. Running your own business is busy, let alone my busy personal life. And I really need to keep on top of, hey, what am I trying to achieve here? What does that look like?
Yeah. And that's so much in line with what we talk about all the time on the Profit by Design podcast. Your big rocks, which are your $10,000 an hour activities. Those are the things that move the needle forward in your business. And you're using KPIs to help you make decisions about what are your big rocks, where do you need to focus, what gets your attention. And I'm imagining too, that also helps you free up your time. How much time have you freed up in the last year for yourself, just on a weekly basis?
Mm, I have probably been more intentional with, I would say 20% of my time is much more intentional than it used to be. So if you look at that from a work perspective, it probably means about 10 hours less per week.
That's
Yeah.
That's really big. Okay. So I just want to share as we're getting into the content today, we do have our Better Business, Better Life Jumpstart coming up at the end of June. And if you are wanting to take your life back and have a business plan that supports your life, you'll definitely want to be in our Jumpstart because we walk you through the Tap the Potential solution to identifying how your business can be more profitable and creating a plan for that profitability, and then niching down and running your business around a clearly defined sweet spot. So that's really where we help you simplify your business, and then looking at how to create value. So one of the big things that comes out of our jump starts, Angie, I hear over and over people say, I had the biggest mindset shift. I see things so differently. And I think we all know when we shift our mindset, everything else starts to fall into place. So, for those of you who have never been through a jumpstart, get signed up and have this experience with the Tap the Potential team. It's quite amazing. Head on over to tapthepotential.com/jumpstart. Okay, Angie, we hear clients coming to us at Tap the Potential all the time wanting to figure out how to make decisions. Like how do I know if I can afford to hire? We hear that one a lot. How do I know if I can afford to invest in this? How do I know if I can do this or that? So it's the questions around that, the how do I know questions. But there's also, for me, what I notice is there's this sense of I'm driving this business and I don't know where's the map, where are the navigational tools to figure out, am I on the right path? So just talk to us about, why do we even need key performance indicators, and how do we know we need key performance indicators in the business?
Oh, that's such a loaded question for the small business owners out there that are listening right now. I can't tell you how many times I've been drinking from the fire hose in my almost 18 years of business. And that is exactly the reason we need metrics in our business, because we want our businesses to run easy and not be so darn exhausting. And what makes things run easy is really understanding the different things that are happening in your business and being able to prioritize them. But we can't prioritize what's happening in our business if we don't have a framework for that. So we want our business life to be easy. What would it look like if my business were easy? And that means that we have to be proactive instead of drinking from the darn fire hose. So every time there's a client complaining and we need to stop what we're doing and take care of a client complaint, that's not easy. Every time there's a worker who doesn't show up for a shift and we have to figure out what to do and maybe have to go fill the shift ourselves, that's not easy. Every time somebody on your team did a crappy job or didn't know how to complete a task or assignment and it falls back on your own shoulders, that's not easy. None of those things make doing business easy. So what we want to do is really get ahead of it. And it's not easy. It's not easy to get ahead of it. I don't mean to be using that term too much, but to be proactive, we need to get ahead of things. And the way I think that's most effective to being proactive is by setting up a dashboard, by measuring some metrics, and by keeping your eye on those, because otherwise you're just operating off your gut. And I never want to diminish anybody's gut in making decisions, but I really like to check my gut with the financials, with the numbers, so that I can see, yeah, my gut is right. I do need to make a change here.
Yeah. That point right there speaks to me so much, especially in maybe my first 8 years in business, where I made decisions based on my gut, and I didn't often have the numbers to check it out. And I think that's where I paid a lot of dumb tax in business. And I look back and I think, wow, if I would have known then what I know now about some of the key metrics to be tracking in the business, I would have made completely different decisions, and it would have created a lot more ease. And instead, it created headache and stress and more chaos in the business.
Yeah, there can be so much chaos. We are surrounded by noise and chaos as business owners. And how do we cut through that? Well, I really think that Mike's book, Mike Michalowicz's book,
Mhm.
Fix This Next, really helps us identify. So I love this business priority pyramid because it gives us a framework that says, first, we need to focus on sales.
Mhm.
And if those needs aren't met, then we can't even continue up that business priority pyramid to get to another level.
Yeah.
And I will tell you that most of the time when working with clients, there's 5 criteria in meeting your sales and measuring your sales. And most people have one of those that's broken. So we never get out of that first level.
Wow. So, okay, let's go right there. What are these 5 criteria?
Okay, so in Fix This Next, Mike uses this business priority pyramid, and there are 5 levels. And think of it as a pyramid on your screen. So at the base level, the biggest area is that sales level. And within sales, there's lifestyle congruence, and that's understanding, well, how much do I actually have to make to bring into the household so that my tummy is full and there's a roof over my head and that the car has gas in it, right? So
Mhm.
we need to understand and work that number backwards so that we know how much we have to sell so
Yeah.
that your tummy is full, so that there's gas in your car and that there's a roof over your head, right? So that's kind of the tricky part, is how much do I have to sell to make sure my tummy's full? The second one is prospect attraction. Sales is the base level for every business, which means that we have to find leads for our business. So we have to figure out where the leads are coming from. As simple as that. Then we have to convert clients. So that's called client conversion. And it's taking the prospects that we have and measuring the probability if they are going to be a good fit for the
Mhm.
services that we have provided, and if we're going to invest more heavily in trying to have them become a client, because
Yeah.
not every client is a good client. So we want to pick and choose which clients we're trying to convert and use our energies in that place. The fourth one is delivering on commitments. And this one I think is so crazy because people don't necessarily think of delivering on our commitments to the client as part of the sales process, but is
Oh, yeah.
literally the most important part of
Yes.
the sales process. We think of this as something that's more after the sale, right? So sales is here and delivering on our commitments is after that. That's after the fact. But the truth is that unless we can deliver on the commitments that were promised in that sales process, we will lose that client. They will be unhappy. They won't pay us. And so that's where we need to measure our client commitments. And then the last thing that we measure in the sales process, and this is kind of a funny one to think about for sales too, is that we need to collect on our commitments. And that's serving ourselves, right? We
Yes.
need to make sure that that payment comes in. So those are the 5 levels that we need to think about first when we're thinking about sales.
Thank you so much for breaking that down. I mean, you made it super easy. And what stands out to me is when we say, "Oh, I have a sales problem." We need to dig under the hood to understand where that problem is coming from, because it could actually be that we have a lead generation problem, which is more of a marketing aspect of the business, but it is something that has to be measured with sales, because you need to know that you're having leads coming in, and are they qualified leads? because you may not have enough leads coming in. And so that may be part of the sales problem. Or you could have someone who's not a great salesperson on your team and they're not converting those leads. So being able to just track these numbers allows us to make these informed decisions. And Angie, you and I were just talking as we were coming on the podcast. I was complimenting you because Angie's making a hiring decision, and she has numbers, and she laid them out and she said, "Here, what do you guys think? Looking at these numbers and the responses we've been getting, here are some options for what we might do differently." And she was asking us for our input on, because we teach the How to Hire the Best course, and Angie's in that course. And it made it so easy for me to look at and say, here's some options that I see based on what these numbers are showing. And without those numbers, I would have been like, we could try this, we could try that. I don't know, Angie. And it's the numbers that really help us make informed decisions.
Yeah, the numbers really do help us. So we're thinking, yeah, maybe I do have a client attraction problem, but we have to see the numbers then. So,
Mhm.
like one thing, if I were going to measure, do you have a client attraction problem? Well, how many leads are coming in? That would be one thing. And then how are you ranking the quality of the
Yes.
lead would be another thing. And then on top of that, twisting it a little bit more so that when you're in the lead collection process, you are able to identify specifics on how you're going to be able to solve the problem of the client easily and effectively.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I also appreciated what you said about the deliverables and measuring that as part of sales, because if we slip in our delivery, we will lose the opportunity for repeat sales. We can develop a bad reputation in our community, and that can really undermine our sales process. So just being able to measure all of that makes an incredible difference. What's next? What else should we be looking at and measuring in our businesses?
So, one thing I just have to say before we move on is, isn't everybody scared, terrified of a bad Google review? Oh my gosh, it can absolutely make me lose my sleep.
Yes. Yes.
So, I just wanted to put that in there because I think it is a part of sales.
Oh, it is. It absolutely is.
The fear of the Google review, right?
Yes.
Okay, but the next level from sales is profit, right? So we get into business to provide a service or a product to an ideal client market. And honestly, how many times have you seen where we get so busy delivering and finding new opportunities and collecting on those opportunities that we never take a look at the profitability on the job?
Yes.
And if it was profitable, if it wasn't profitable, if you had to use 90% of your resources to complete it, if you only had to use 10% of your resources to complete it. That's all part of profitability. So it's having a plan beyond the sale. When I get the sale, how am I going to be profitable? How many of these do I need to be able to keep my tummy fed?
Yeah. The measuring profitability is so important, and it's something that we can lose sight of if we just get focused on make those sales, just like you said. And we're both profit first professionals. I think that's one of the greatest gifts to the world that Profit First has brought is we have a way now to measure profitability, and we have target allocation percentages in our businesses to work towards to let us know how are we doing with respect to profitability in our business. Are we knocking it out of the park, or are we really falling behind, and do we have opportunities to create more efficiency in the business? I know for myself, just this morning, the leadership team at Tap the Potential has a really interesting opportunity in front of us. Could be a lot of fun for us to do. And it was a key consideration that we're in our discussion is how will this impact our profitability? Not just from a numbers perspective, but also from a capacity perspective on the team. And we have to look at both because both impact profitability. Angie, you're an accounting professional. Talk to me about, where do you see business owners really struggling to wrap their heads around tracking the profitability if they're delivering a service or a product out there? What are the challenges, and what are some simple solutions to just identify, is what we're doing even profitable?
I think probably the biggest challenge is kind of what we're talking about here. It's too much noise. There's too many distractions and too much firefighting.
Mhm.
So we don't realize that we're losing profitability because we're not able to be looking back and measuring things and being able to set ourselves up for proactivity. I heard you talk about this. It was one of your recent podcasts, actually, and you talked about how you went through a slump in your business
Mhm.
and you were really, really struggling.
Mhm.
And you had this predetermined mindset that you couldn't borrow money.
Yeah.
But we aren't saying that you can't borrow money, that you have to be profitable without borrowing money. It's the other piece of it, the
Mhm.
leveraged piece
Yeah.
of it, that's way more important, because if we're borrowing money to support our business, we need to have a plan for it. We need to have a
Mhm.
proactive plan so that we know, how much am I going to have to feed in to get XYZ results? And
Mhm.
then you're measuring against it. So if you're not getting XYZ results that you thought you should be getting from the investment, from using that debt, then how are you going to shift and change? And
Yeah.
that whole vision, or that whole plan, is a vision of proactivity. It's
Mhm.
an activity that is around having metrics and key performance indicators.
Yeah. Yeah. And that really, what I think what just stands out to me is, these metrics and key performance indicators really help us make the strategic decisions in our business. And without them, we're flying blind, and we're having to go from our gut. And the biggest lesson I learned, you and I are both pumpkin plan professionals, so we can talk a little pumpkin plan shop here too. What Early on in my business, when I became a certified pumpkin planner, um, pumpkin plan strategist, we have to walk our talk when we become pumpkin plan strategists. So we have to look at who are our top clients, and we have to go through that process of identifying our sweet spot in the business. And I remember conversations with Mike McAllowitz and Donna Lyons, and I pushed back. They said, you need to go talk to your top clients and hear what they have to say about your services. And I said, no, I have a gut feeling, because I talk to them all the time. I think I know what they're going to say. And one of them challenged me and said, you think you know, but do you know? And it's the numbers, it's the data that allow us to make more informed decisions. And sure enough, when I went and talked with my top clients, I heard different things than I anticipated hearing. And that changed the whole trajectory of how Tap the Potential has evolved over the last 10 to 12 years. That's how significant just having data to make decisions around is
Mhm,
when it comes to business strategy.
mhm. We recently started measuring our net promoter score. And what we do is we're sending out an annual survey to clients. So we send out surveys at 3 times in the life cycle of a business doing business with us. One is after they've finished their onboarding process and they're considered ongoing clients. And so we send out a survey of how that experience was for them. The second time is just annually. We try to send it out every April-ish, May-ish, after the tax deadline, and just get feedback on how our clients are doing. And we are asking that question for net promoter score. And
Mhm.
then the third time is if somebody leaves us, we ask for their feedback at that time. I was thrilled with the results of the survey that we just sent out. We got a 76%. And
Ooh.
they say that most companies have a net promoter score of between 20 and 30%.
Yeah.
So while 76 is like, okay, it's not 100%, we still got 24 more percent to improve. They say 70% is where the majority of your clients are happy. Is there room for improvement? Sure. But, we're measuring it. And then this is just great to have that number, because then we can dig down and see what were their comments
Mhm.
about what suited them well and where they struggled. And we
Yes.
get to measure that.
Yeah. And, I think both of us have been through the experience where our service delivery has been really strong and then things change in the business, team members change, and service delivery slips. And then we have to work to get it back to where it was. And we've used the Net Promoter Score to help us track, are we making progress in getting our service delivery back on track where it needs to be? And Angie, kudos to you, because 76 is phenomenal. That is really, really good. And the thing too that I love about the Net Promoter Score is, or any key performance indicator, is once we track it for a period of time in our business, we know we can use it as a benchmark for us. And then we can say, we want to improve it. On the Tap the Potential team, we tend to swing for the fences, and we learn through the School of Hard Knocks, we fall flat on our face when we swing for the fences. So instead of saying we want to get to 100, because we would like to, or a Net Promoter Score of 90, we've decided, what, we're going to work on a 10 to 20% increase. And then we talk on our leadership team, is it 10% or is it 20%? And we just want to start, every quarter making it a little bit better. And it's those micro adjustments. And this gets to the pumpkin planning too, right? Because when we pay attention to what our top clients want the most and how we're serving them, and we start to cater more and more in that direction, we're making these micro adjustments that will get those Net Promoter Scores up over a period of time. So you have really useful information with
Yeah,
that.
one thing I learned through pumpkin planning is that if you do these wish list interviews and you ask people, what's been good about working with my company, and you listen to it, you record it, you hear it in their words, I am just shocked at what they think
Yes.
makes such a difference, right? Because it's not what I thought it was. I'm like you. Oh, my gut says, my gut says this, my gut says that. And when you actually talk to a customer who's absolutely satisfied and in your sweet spot, the things that they mention as it was life changing are not necessarily the things that I would have thought of.
Yep. Well, and I think that really just gets to, our strengths are so much a part of who we are, we take them for granted. And as we're building a team and we develop our sweet spot, it comes from the strengths of the team. And that it's just what you guys are doing in the course of doing business. But until you hear it directly from your customers and in their language, you don't see as much value to it as they do. So just really understanding that impact and then using that to continue to grow around those areas that really matter the most, because our clients and customers are not paying attention to everything we're doing. They're paying attention to about 20% of what we're doing. And when we know what that 20% is, wow, we can really do that great. It makes to your point, it makes business easier.
One thing I love about working with Tap the Potential, I just have to say, is that you're measuring the immeasurable. So you're measuring people's feelings and perceptions. And
Yes.
like that is just beautiful. You said they only pay attention to 20% of what you do. So that's 80% that they don't even notice.
Yes.
So, putting a statistic, putting a number to that is really a happy spot for me as a bookkeeper.
Yes. Yes. Well, because I mean, there's so many things we could be tracking, but really just kind of bringing it down to the essence. So, what are some other KPIs that are really helpful beyond you were talking about profit, and boy, that led us all over the place. We had
Yeah.
lots to talk about there. What beyond profit, what else should we be tracking?
Well, so I really do think a lot of it is in that sales stage. So, where are your leads coming from? And then, where are your best leads coming
Mhm.
from? And then, like, tracking this client conversion process. So, within client conversion is like, how fast are you able to follow up? And how long, what's the sales length? Is this a 1 day process? Is this a 1 year process? Understanding that, and just understanding some of the measurements around the ideal client size, and the frequency of your transactions and the dollar amount of your transactions. One that I was blown away by when we started tracking it a few years ago is what percentage of our sales come as a result of increasing their package. So they bought something additionally. They were already doing business with us and they bought another thing that we were offering. And I was surprised at how much business grew from they started small and they purchased more after they got friendly, familiar, know, like, trust us, things of that nature.
Wow, that's incredible. And just to have the data to know that, then you can be more intentional and your team can be more intentional with making sure that people are aware that you guys have other services that people can take advantage of.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also think it's really very strategic to just monitor your leads and the sources over time. I've seen it time and time again when working with clients that it shifts, right? We are a technology driven society. And we had this little blip on the map called COVID. And as a result, so much of our business shifted and changed, and we had to pivot and do things a different way. And it was so helpful. It is so helpful to have, okay, this is what it was like before COVID. Then COVID happened. And now we're having to reevaluate because this technology isn't working for us anymore, or that one really picked up, like this is way more where people are finding and hearing about us than it used to be.
Yeah, and being able to just track those trends over time is so valuable. And so, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, "I don't have any of this data that Angie and Dr. Sabrina are talking about," you just got to start somewhere. And I'll tell my story with my first introduction to key performance indicators. I had a coach and he put this spreadsheet in front of me and it had all these columns and he wanted me to track my gross profit percentage and my um, uh, what was it? Fixed operating expenses and um, variable operating expenses. I mean, it had like 10 different things. And I said, I don't even know how to calculate these things. And his statement to me was, pick one. Let's just pick one. And he helped me figure out where my biggest pain points were. And he said, pick this one because this is where you're struggling the most right now. So Angie, what's your guidance around this? Where do we get started?
Yeah, I think getting started is all around that business priority pyramid. So I would take the Fix This Next assessment and kind of figure out where you are on that business priority pyramid. Is it sales? Is it profit? Is it order? And then we take a look at that and we say, okay, what are we measuring in sales? Because all of us are measuring some things, right?
Yeah.
It's just a little bit incomplete. So one of the things that we're helping our clients with is kind of the process around that. Okay, what needs to be measured? What's the broken link right now?
Mhm.
What measurements do we already have in place so we can, start to track this, start to build it? And then the third part of it is who's going to do this? Who's going to keep it up? Assigning a person and a frequency to it and a process to it
Yeah.
so that you can see the results over time.
Yeah.
Those are big things.
And when you're assigning that person, it doesn't have to be the business owner. And it's
Correct.
better when it's not the business owner because we business owners need to be able to come in and look at the numbers and think strategically. But if we're the one gathering all the data and putting it in and then looking at it and having to think strategically and we're short on time to begin with, guess what's not going to happen? The
That
strategic thinking.
strategic thinking, yeah,
Yeah, it goes by the
real
wayside.
fast, right?
Yes. And so this really gets to everything that we're about at Top of the Potential, which is delegation to your team, empowering them. And at Top of the Potential, we have team members who own the KPIs. They don't necessarily have to be the ones doing what's required for the KPI, but they own it. And so that means they're holding someone else accountable for making sure that they're hitting the metric that's needed to keep everything going. And just for businesses that are more mature, one of the comments that I want to share from my own experience is it is beautiful to have a KPI dashboard and to be able to say, oh, I see we're down here. That means that in 4 weeks, if we don't address this, we're going to have a problem over here and over here and over here. And so it becomes, it really is a dashboard that gives us an alert that says, hey, pay attention. And so the best thing that you can do if you're hearing Angie and I today is to just get started with this. And if you already are pretty far down the road with your dashboard, looking at what information are you missing to make better decisions, to make more strategic decisions in the business. And like Angie said, taking that Fix This Next assessment is a really helpful tool. Angie, I know you have your easy peasy business toolkit. You want to share what's included in that?
Yeah. So I do think that the first step is just doing it, right? And what I see in working with small business owners is one, they're scared of the accounting and the financial terms of their business. So what we did in our easy peasy business toolkit is we just put together a glossary of terms. So you can refer back, well, what does net profit mean? And what is gross margin and all this kind of stuff. So a simple glossary of terms. And then we've also provided in our toolkit a glossary of metrics. And what we've done is we've aligned them with the 5 levels in the business priority pyramid. So we have metrics that measure sales, profit, order, impact, and legacy. And each one of those metrics is, how you calculate it. How do you calculate it? And then the third part of the toolkit is frequency, because your average sale, for example, if you figure out what your average invoice dollar amount is, that's not going to shift from week to week. It might shift from year to year. So maybe that's something that you only have to do annually instead of weekly. And there's other things that you are going to have to do weekly. So, and that also kind of depends upon your trajectory and how fast you're trying to grow.
Oh, that's phenomenal. Okay. So when this episode releases on the podcast, everybody who's listening here live today, you're getting a sneak peek. This is going to release on the Profit by Design podcast. Angie will have the links for that, and we will put those in the show notes so you can get your easy peasy business toolkit. Angie, this has been, you're so generous with your time here to be here with us and sharing this knowledge and very useful information with our Profit Design listeners. Any final thoughts as we wrap up?
I think the final thought is really just asking yourself, what would it look like if my business were easy to run? And the first thing that's going to come to mind is probably what's not easy. And then spend some time thinking about that. Well, how can I make this easier? How can I be more proactive on this piece that is identifying itself as broken?
I love that. That's a very powerful question. Thank you for sharing that with us, Angie, and thanks for being here with us.
Thank you. It's so much fun. Love talking about this stuff.